Okay, well, let's get started. My name is Chris. Thank you for welcoming me here. I'll try and stay out of the way here. I'm from a company called Converge. Got some of my friends in the room too. If you guys want to put your hands up. Amazing. Thank you. I saw other people wave. Converge is a pretty cool company. That actually only been around since 2017, but the mandate was to go and acquire some of the best companies in a bunch of technology domains and sew them together and get them talking to each other's customers. So we have about 5,000 customers. I think Converge bought 35 or 36 companies. We're about 3,000 people between North America and Western Europe. And the way that I think of it, I've been around for a year. The way I look at Converge is this really cool vertically integrated technology company. So all of you, I see laptops out. So humans, we work on devices. Those devices run applications that we can build. Those applications are increasingly powered by data and AI, which is the group that I come from. We deploy all of that on the cloud sometimes. So we've got a cloud practice. We wrap all of it in cybersecurity, and we can put it on-prem on hardware that we deploy and support and manage services. So it's this really, I was just telling the guys, I come from a pure analytics background. It's very nice being able to say, yeah, we can do that. Because there were so many times where I just had to phone a friend, like for a cybersecurity problem, for example. I've got a pretty cool job. I get to, and before you try to figure out which dark corner of Washington State my accent is from, I'm from Calgary. So I'm from not around here, up in Canada. I saw a fist pump. Yes. Yeah. I don't know if you guys can tell me if I have the weird Canadian accent or not. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. The further east, now if you think I'm weird, the further east you go, you start getting the boots and A's, and I'll try to stay away from that. But wait, what? Yeah, exactly. So my job's cool. I get to look at the market, decide where we want to partner, what solutions we want to build, where we invest, who we hire, what are the skills that are going to be really important for us to be able to serve our clients and customers into the next couple of years. And so it was kind of funny when they asked me to speak today. AI and data, I describe it to the guys as it's kind of like we always owned a kale farm. It wasn't cool for a really long time. Nobody wanted to talk to us data and AI nerds. And all of a sudden, the tables have turned. Now you need us. And which is great. But we used to avoid a lot of the drama, and now we can't anymore. The drama has certainly found us. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around for another what seems to be AI presentation. I actually heard somebody walk out and say, if I can't sit through another AI presentation, I'm going to blow my brains out. And so I hope this isn't like the other ones. We're going to have a little bit of fun, but we're going to talk about real life. And so this is real life. This is what I deal with on a regular basis. This is what all of you are probably going to have to deal with. Ultimately, if you listen to the news and you read it on Twitter, either everybody thinks it's going to save us all or it's going to kill us all. And I think the truth is somewhere in the middle there. Is anybody familiar with this open letter that is out there? So if you're a scholar and you're in the AI world, so this is an open letter signed by about 35, I took this screenshot a couple of weeks ago, but signed by about 35,000 AI researchers and specialists. And it basically says, it's time to pause. So GPT-4 came out and it scared a bunch of people because of some of the capabilities and how many parameters it had. And they said, okay, anything more powerful than GPT-4, we're starting to get closer to AGI or real artificial intelligence where we can't tell the difference between humans and AI, and we need to stop. Now, here's the real test. Is anybody familiar with this name at the bottom? If you guys can see it, it's Eliezer. I was speaking at the Titans of AI conference yesterday in Bellevue, and everybody put up their hands. So it was a very different audience. But this is good because this guy, if you want to go blow your mind, he kind of lives at the intersection of computer science and philosophy. And he's the one talking about AI alignment. He wouldn't sign this letter. He said it wasn't restrictive enough. So, the fact that it says we need to stop, he's the other way. He's treating them like nuclear weapons. In fact, he's saying the most likely outcome of building superhumanly smart AI is that we all are going to die. And this is a scholar. This isn't a sensationalist guy out there. So what I hope to do today is help you understand I think you've all heard this timeline enough, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but it's no accident that we got to where we are. And in fact, it's just another peak on another wave in the world of AI. So this has been around for a long time. We're actually going to double back here, I think, and we're going to talk about what is coming in the years ahead. Some of these patterns are going to reemerge. And so I'm going to coach you on how to think through some of those problems as you get a lot of these questions. But really, we've been through 2 AI winters. That's where funds started to get diverted to other things like war and defense budgets instead of AI, waiting for computing to catch up. Computing has caught up. It's actually lapped us many times over now. And so we are just trying to figure out what can we do with all of this compute. And you've heard a lot of those ideas today. Now, unfortunately, it's very messy. This is what the data and AI landscape looks like from a vendor perspective. So if any of you are buyers or you're trying to do architecture and decide which vendors to partner with, you guys know this. This is my job. How do we pick from this? What does a reference architecture look like these days? It's messy. Some of these don't even exist anymore since I took this screen recording, right? So they get $100 million in VC funding and then they disappear, or they merge with somebody else. And so do you want to go build your AI infrastructure on some of these? I'd recommend not. And there's some that definitely work better than others. And so that's my job, is to educate you on the patterns that we're seeing, what is working, what isn't working. And this is what people are working on with AI these days. You guys have probably seen these themes repeated in a couple of different ways. I'm going to keep this presentation pretty non-technical, if that's okay, and instead teach you how to put some of these problems into buckets that then you can go do some further research on. So let's start here. Now, I'm very fortunate because these aren't just coming from my brain. I'm lucky to have friends at government agencies or brands that you use every day, people who are doing research, trying these things, breaking them. And so they've allowed me to borrow some of that experience and those ideas and share them with you. So this isn't Chris's brain here. This is coming from the pool of knowledge. Designing for AI. Is anybody familiar with this concept? Basically, this is saying, how are people even going to interpret and react with these things that we are building? We spent a lot of time today talking about what we can build, but not a lot of talking about what happens when somebody gets that into their hands and what do they do with it? How do they react? If it's my dad, it's a very different reaction than if it's my son, who's very technology savvy, right? So I'll talk about that in a second. Event-based insights. This is watching devices and watching for patterns. If we have enough data collected from enough data points, we can start to look for patterns that emerge. I'm going to skip that. It ends up being a little bit technical, but I'm going to spend time on synthetic data. So generating data that could be generative AI, that gets all the hype for sure, but also synthesizing your own test data or scenario modeling. Some of these tools are really powerful at doing that. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Edge AI, so pushing AI models out to devices. Each of you have a super powerful computer in your pocket, right? And so the ability for us to, it's not just Snapchat filters. There's other ways for us to push very powerful AI modeling out to those devices, heavy compute, and use it as a hive of compute instead of having to do it on some supercomputer centrally. AI in science. This is proteins being synthesized. This is research being done, in labs. That's not the glamorous stuff, but it is accelerating research quicker than ever, and that has a lot of implications. Reviewing, peer reviewing journals and that sort of. It's getting very messy. There's a lot of content being generated in research. AI reasoning. This is we get a little nerdy here again, but most AI or machine learning, at least, is looking at historical patterns and trying to predict what's going to happen in the future. AI reasoning goes after causal effects, so looking at why things happen in the first place. And so if you're into any of that philosophy, I told the guys yesterday at Titans of AI to go read up on Carl Friston if you want to go read a story that'll blow your mind. Wired actually did a really good article on this. It's the free energy principle. Digital twins. Anybody here familiar with that term? I assume so. Yes. Okay. So this is where we start to get to physical assets. We're creating digital copies of things that exist in the real world, and that allows us to do a bunch of stuff. We're going to talk about it. Did I skip one? Optimization. You guys use the solver tool in Excel. This is basically linear algebra and saying, okay, I'm trying to optimize for some specific outcome. Here's all my constraints. Tell me how I should organize everything. I'll show you a model for this in a second. So designing for AI. When we talk about machine learning, we're talking about everything that happens in those 4 squares, okay? But our intent and our policies and the outcomes and the feedback loop are all things that we need to think about. And so we do this, this is a design thinking exercise. So when we sit with, some global retailer or an airline, we don't say, let's talk about the 4 boxes. Technology has that stuff sorted out already. We talk about, what are you even intending to do with this? And how do you think people will react to it? And what's the outcome? Are people going to be filled with joy or fear or questions? I know that's not the fun stuff to talk about, but that's what makes these projects stick. And that's what makes technology, people adopt it. Generative AI, I am not going to beat you to death with this. All I want you to understand is that a lot of data that you see now, whether it is text or articles or sounds, your voice, video, we have so much historical data now that we can pretty much generate whatever we want. Being able to interact with these models, has anybody used this part of ChatGPT yet? Okay, you guys got to go play with this. It's crazy. This is the voice, so you can basically just talk to it. That is powerful, can speak in any language and answer in any language. So it's doing all of that translation in real time. You can send it, attach a photo. So as you're chatting, you can say, actually, here's what I'm talking about, and say, here's the picture of, this is somebody with a bike seat that they're trying to lower. And they're saying, is this the lever that I'm trying to loosen? And they're saying, no, that's a bolt. You're going to need an Allen key for that, right? And these are real screens. These aren't mock-ups. This is the real deal. And maybe most significantly, ChatGPT 3.5 was trained on data up until the end of 2021. Now, these transformers have access to the internet. So this is a live, it can go get data in real time, making it extremely powerful. Let's talk about generative AI for a second. I'm sure, have you guys seen these images going around on social media? Does anybody, I know it's a dumb question. Can you see what it says there? Yeah. Now that an artist could do that, I suppose. But the power here is, this is called ControlNet, by the way, if you want to go play with it. It's from a company called Stable Diffusion or Stable AI. They were actually with us yesterday. Their supercompute leader was with us. It understands the essence of what you are asking it. And I think that's the really important. If you put on your computer science hat for a second, it's very different to say, build a city skyline that says the word New York. And you know what it would have done? It would have done a building that was taller and shorter and shorter. But instead here it's using light, and these buildings look very photorealistic, and it looks much more obvious on my tiny little preview here than it does on the very big version of this. So, these models are very, very powerful in that this is what, if you guys have heard the term a neural network, this is what a neural network does. Instead of literally being told what to do, you're saying, you're asking it to understand the essence of something, which is really, really powerful. And it allows us to do things like this, where we can go into MS Paint and say, I want my home office to kind of look like this. And it's just a bunch of blobs, and it will generate photorealistic mock-ups for us. Imagine, the number of proposals and design iterations that we can skip now because this can just be generated, right? Okay, add some more color to it, add RGB lighting to it. Here's a sketch, render something for a pamphlet I'm putting together or a publication. So, we always talk about ROI in terms of does it make more money or save more money? I think in this case, we can do more cycles in a shorter amount of time, right? Whether that's planning or marketing, et cetera. So extremely powerful. We can also generate things like code. Has anybody have we talked about this in any of the other sessions? I tried to be everywhere at once, but this is Python. And so this is GitHub Copilot. And basically you're just saying, I'm going to do a product of 2 numbers, and it just writes the formula for you, right? I think the gentleman from CDW on stage saying he always starts with the Copilot because it'll write code for him. And that is absolutely the case. So in this scenario, what we've done is we've lowered the bar, lowered the point of entry to get into development. You are all going to need more developers in your world. This is what powers technology now. So we've lowered the entry price. Now I just need to know a little bit about Python, and it'll give me the structures to go do that. Super, super powerful. Digital twin technology. So again, we have our physical assets. So these are the things out in the real world, and our digital representations of these objects. The point is that more and more physical assets these days have their own sensors. So, I'm from Calgary. It's a big oil and gas town. Every drill, every well has 100 plus sensors on it, right, for vibration and heat, whatever. But if we want to test some sort of maintenance on that object, or we want to do like non-destructive or destructive testing, X-ray or whatever, that's very expensive to send somebody out into the field. Instead, we've got so much data that we can do that testing digitally, and you can do that in a municipal setting as well. This is a city called Sault Ste. Marie in Ontario, and they have digitalized everything. So here you're seeing some of their pipe diameter. These are some of the pipes underground that they have parameters on. But fire hydrants, the sensors on all the walking paths, public transit, the traffic system, etc. And so when they want to simulate construction, for example, they can run those scenarios and they know exactly how foot traffic is going to be rerouted because they've been capturing this. They got in early. And the secret here was that they've got all this data in one place. These are public case studies too. So if you want to Google it, it's Sault Ste. Marie. I won't say much about this. I don't know if anybody walked by our booth, but we had some F1 cars zooming around. Any Formula One fans here? Yes. Okay, cool. Since McLaren's been doing really good. I can't take 1,000% credit for that, but in F1, I'll use this as an example really quickly. Time in the wind tunnel, where they do a lot of the aerodynamic testing, and computer simulation time is limited. It's so that the rich teams can't just sit in the tunnel all day burning money, right? It makes it very equal. So they only get a few hours a week, I believe, is what the regulations are now. So the more simulations that they can do, this is CFD, so like computational fluid dynamics, right? So looking at how air flows over and under the car. These cars are very heavy ground effects cars now, so it really matters what's happening under the car. The more testing cycles that they can do in a shorter amount of time, the less time they have to, they're making the most of their time in the tunnel or in the simulator. So really, really powerful. Optimization, I was trying to describe this math. I might as well just show you a picture of it. But so when we do optimization, again, I was talking about like the Excel solver tool, linear algebra. We're saying we have some sort of outcome, minimize cost or whatever. We have variables, and then we have our constraints. We can only work people 8 hours a day. We've only got 100 staff. They can only drive X amount, or we have a certain amount of vehicles. Optimize for some outcome. Really, really powerful. And so we're using, I'll call this boring AI. It's if any of you come from a statistics background, it's much more closer akin to statistics than it is to what we think of as AI or generative AI these days. But it is super powerful because we can do things like optimize the route of a delivery vehicle or an NHL schedule, right? A lot of constraints. They can only travel certain days. They can't play the same team twice in a row. More rules to play teams in their division, border crossings, hotel availability. There's a lot of constraints, right? The layout of a grocery store. You probably have learned that it's very intentional, the way that you are routed as an animal through the grocery store, right? They pass you by the expensive stuff, which is on the end caps. There's a science behind it. So we optimize for that with these models. I think ultimately my point, and I guess the point of this whole presentation, is that I hate how elitist the AI world is. I'm smarter than everybody, and I'm the only, you need me to build these models for you. And I want to make sure that you all understand that is not the case. We are seeing this used by everybody, regardless of technical aptitude or background or access to technology. And it's too small to read. We'll share this with all of you, but I just want you to be thinking in terms of persona. When you're thinking of AI, don't just think of it in terms of, smart data scientists building these models. There's tools for everybody. How many of you have heard of Microsoft Copilot? Sick. Good. Have you guys been playing with it? Yeah, not yet. It's wild. It's cheating. But like, it's great. And I think this is how most people are going to interact with AI. If you want to talk about scale on that kind of wide side of the pyramid, this is where people are going to see it. So this screenshot says what's hot in my inbox right now, and it'll highlight things that are hot. I've got a couple of animations for you. So this one says, did anything happen yesterday with Fabricam, which is this account? So it looks, there was a meeting. Mona sent out an urgent email saying there's a problem with this. Here's the project checklist, and then here's 3 attachments discussing this, right? So I don't know if you guys are like me. I get hundreds of emails a day. This is valuable. This tells me, this is my dashboard. This tells me where to focus my time in a day, right? That's not beautiful. It's just really practical. And so, leave it to Microsoft to build things like this. And this one's really powerful too. Again, cheating, but asking Copilot to write an email for you saying, oh, we had a presenter drop out. Can you be a last minute presenter? And it says, oh, apologies for the short notice. Our original presenter at the, it fills all the fluffy language for you and writes the email and says, do you want to adjust this? We call that reinforcement learning through human feedback. So if you were to adjust this, the model learns from that and it learns your language. It knows who you are and how you speak. So your emails will sound more and more like you. Scary, but powerful. This is next level. So draft me a proposal based on the meeting notes here. And you've pointed it at those files in OneNote or in Word. And here's a whole proposal generated. So maybe you want to format or read, copy and paste from that. But that, as somebody who deals a lot with proposals, is very valuable. I don't know if you guys would agree with me. All things that you have heard today, but I was very conscious that we would be sharing this material. So obviously there are ethical issues with this. I'm not on the doomer side of this equation. I think there's a lot of considerations we all have to make when we are deploying these models, but I strongly urge you, and I'll kind of end here in a bit, but don't do nothing because of this, right? I think we have to take on pilot projects, try things, find groups who are more tolerant to some of these issues and go break stuff and figure it out in a nice, safe environment, and then come up with this. We're spending a lot of time doing just policy generation right now. So I'm sure a lot of you are facing the question of just what is our policy generally? Do we block ChatGPT like on our network and not let people do it? We've seen that happen, right? They go to their own laptop and they copy and paste and email it to themselves. It doesn't work. People will find a way. They're very creative, right? So instead of locking it down, we have to educate. I think that number one is we just have to educate people, run workshops, run tutorials, have open offices where they can come sit down and just break stuff and see how it works. Tons and tons of legal issues. This isn't just a technology conversation. I'm sure your general counsel and, lawyers and policymakers and counselors and constituents, everybody has a say and a fear and a wish out of this. And so, luckily we are doing dozens of these. You can steal those ideas if you want those frameworks. You're happy to reach out and instead of making stuff up, you're not the first cities to try to do this around the world, right? So somebody is doing this and we can borrow their ideas. A lot of them are all about the community, so they're very willing to share. So let me be that glue for you. Ultimately, we need to be responsible as we use it. This is an AI governance framework for you, and I'm happy to share this with you. I think ultimately what you'll see is the same word repeat in each of these columns. So whether we are operationalizing AI, managing our risk and reputation, or just doing regulatory governance, you'll see the word document repeated over and over again, right? And so a lot of these technologies will self-document. They'll document themselves. And that prevents us from doing the old black box AI, which is the most dangerous kind, right? Where we can't explain, we can't show bias, we can't show reasoning, we don't know where the data set came from. So a lot of these workflows will document themselves and monitor their drift. So if they're getting more biased over time, they will notify you and tell you this model needs retraining and retuning. This is much less about control and much more about transparency. So just being able to observe these models as they exist in the real world. Now, this is early. So if anybody at this conference tells you that they've got it figured out and they don't, work at Google or, that's about it, they're probably lying. There is a lot to still figure out here. I think what we are still seeing is these pitfalls. These models do, I forget who was saying it. Maybe it was the gentleman on stage at lunchtime, but models hallucinating. Absolutely they do. They've been trained on billions of parameters and they will make connections between those points that don't exist. And so we still see that. they are biased. You will need to take these models and make them culturally fit into your organizations and into your communities. So an answer in Florida is going to look very different than it does in Seattle. The language that it uses, the history that is behind it, the sensitivity, et cetera. I have a bunch of these for you. I think, how are we doing on time? I didn't see you hold up 5 minutes. So I won't go into these in a bunch of detail, but I will give you these. If you want to take pictures, like, go for it. But I think what we're trying to do, again, the spirit of this presentation is to gather a bunch of stuff that everybody else is doing, and then you don't have to start from scratch. But the idea of an AI task force, is anybody's organization taking this on right now? Yeah. So we're seeing this first, basically saying, go hack and slash your way through the jungle and just try to figure out what this even is. From a citizen perspective, what do you say publicly? What are we working on, right? People want to know how these technologies are going to make their lives better. So what is your vision? How are you communicating that to them right now in terms of disaster management or a safer city? Shadow AI, we talked about this. People are going to use it regardless, right? So, there are ways we can monitor this, and there are also ways that we can teach people to use it responsibly. And we have a lot of those frameworks for you if you would like to see them. Regulation, but also, innovating at the same time. Those are opposing forces right now in the world of at least generative AI. I don't know if there's anybody from the city of Seattle, but like the Seattle is great, and their policy is go ahead. They decided to go the education route. So if you use it responsibly. Here are the guardrails as you use it. There's a great case study from Boston as well, if you guys want to read about this. I don't want to take a bunch of time to talk about it. Ultimately, any IT managers and stuff in the room here? Yeah, cool. You guys know this then. This is it. We talk about AI. It's the shiny thing at the end, right? Ultimately, these are heavy engineering projects and very data dependent, both cleanliness and availability and centralization. In fact, this is, I bring this up just to kind of make my point. This is Azure, Microsoft's reference architecture for citizen AI. So this is their easy blueprint for AI. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of nodes on this diagram, from Synapse pipelines to Azure Data Lake and SQL pools, Azure machine learning pipelines through to Power BI. This stuff still takes work. And it's really hard to find one person who knows all of this. So you're still going to need to build a modern team that knows how to do the data engineering and the cloud platforming and the cybersecurity considerations. There's ML, there's machine learning in here. So we need the ML ops, watching these models for drift, et cetera. None of this is straightforward. That doesn't mean you can't do it. There's a lot of great ways to get started. And the vendors, the mega vendors, we've built our own blueprints for doing this. But it's not as magical as a lot of the AI vendors would like you to think. Ultimately, it's too hard for me to be the evangelist in all of our clients. We have 4,000 or 5,000 clients, and so we tell them, we try to create champions in each of our accounts, and we say, okay, somebody go around and ask some of these questions. Are we even ready to handle this? How are we going to educate our executives on what to tell the board, what to tell the public? Who's responsible for deciding who we partner with, right? These aren't always technology partnerships. These are ethical considerations and cost considerations. So I'll share some of these. We have I tried to pick the top like 8 or 9 here, but there's hundreds of these. And so I'm happy to share these with you so that you can start asking these questions inside of your organizations. I think ultimately, as we look ahead, in the public sector, my experience, you guys can fight me on this, but a lack of AI expertise, that doesn't mean that people don't understand it. It just means that, the private sector is a lucrative place right now for people who have AI skills, and it's really tough to compete and pay the kind of money that they're expecting. And so you can build that talent and grow that talent. I think that's really important. You can do public-private partnerships and try to tap into some of that talent. Lack of motivation. I thought this was maybe a controversial thing to say, but sometimes change is uncomfortable, and people, I talk about replacing some old Excel macro. that's somebody's job, and that's a job security thing. So, you know, sometimes we don't think of that, and I think it's really, really important. It's expensive. Has anybody noticed and done any Googling on what some of this stuff costs? So Tesla's new training cluster, and somebody help me. I'm not a hardware guy, but they had 10,000 of those H100 GPUs. Does anybody know how much those cost each? No, in Canadian pesos, it's about $30,000. I think that's about 25,000 US dollars. So that's $300 million just in hardware. Costs $1 in hardware for $1 in power. So that's another $300 million just to power those things every single year. So these are big. And that's just for Tesla, right? To train GPT-4 was about $100 million just to train that model, which is wild. So I appreciate this. I don't know if I have time for questions. No, okay, that's okay. I will hang out here if anybody wants to ask questions along the way. My colleagues are also here. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.